Welcome back to the episode of SmoothBrainEDH, where the smoothest plays with the biggest brains. We're back from a short break with some new gameplay, so let's see what our players brought this time around. First up is Sam on the partner pairing of Madame Vastra and Ginny Flint. This teamer deck is all about making food and clue tokens, then sacrificing them to buff up Madame Vastra and beat down opponents. Next up is Caden on old Gnawbone. This mono green deck is as about straightforward as you can get. Play creatures, turn them sideways, make mana, repeat until opponents are dead. Third is Cameron on Gandalf the White. This mono white deck is an artifact combo deck, using Gandalf's double up ETB and dying triggers on artifacts to accrue massive value during combo lines. Last is Ethan on Tetzin, Gnome Champion. This Jeskai deck is all about double-faced artifacts, using Tetzin as a way to generate card advantage and fill up the yard, then reanimating a ton of artifacts from that yard. We're about to hop right into the game, but before that, go ahead and give us a like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell so you don't miss any of our new content. We have links to our social media, public Discord server, deck lists, and our Patreon in the description. We're partnered with Dragon Shield. Check out our affiliate link in the description if you're looking to pick up any sleeves, deck boxes, or playmats, and use code SMOOTH5 at checkout for 5% off your order. We are also partnered with Inked Gaming. Our affiliate link is also in the description if you're looking to make any custom playmats. Now, on to the gameplay.
It looks like Caden wins the die roll. He'll start off with a forest into that nasty turn 1 Soul Ring, and then he'll pass to Cameron, who plays a plane, then a Lotus Petal, and then the turn is passed to Ethan, who will start off with Rogrin Triome. The turn is then passed, and Sam has the best starting turn with Taiga into Soul Ring into Basilisk Collar, and then he'll pass to Caden, who starts off with a Cultivate. This will find him 2 forests, 1 to his hand, 1 to the battlefield tapped, and then he'll play 1 as land for turn. Then he'll cast Land of War Elves and pass to Cameron, who starts off with another Plains, then he'll cast Worn Power Stone with the help of his Lotus Petal, and then the turn is passed to Ethan, who will just play a Plains and then pass to Sam, who plays his Volcanic Island. He'll then tap for 4 and cast Madame Vastra, and then pass to Caden, who starts off with another forest, and then he'll cast a Rampant Growth, which finds, of course, another forest. After this, he'll tap for 5 and cast Vivian, Monster's Advocate. He'll uptick her and create a 3/3 beast with a reach counter on it, and then he passes the turn to Cameron, who will start off with Inventor's Fair, and then pass the turn to Ethan. What? The Flash deck's gonna play at instant speed? No way. We'll then move to Ethan's turn, where he'll play a Storm-Carved Coast. He considers casting Tetzin, but instead decides to go with his Chrome Host Seed Shark. The turn is passed to Sam, and he'll play a Tropical Island, and then he equips Vastra with the Collar. He'll then move to combat and swing for 3 at Cameron, who just takes it. The turn is then passed to Caden, and he'll start off with a War Room as land for turn. He'll then downtick Vivian, then tap for 7 and cast Old Gnawbone. Vivian's downtick will trigger. This allows Caden to go find a creature with mana value 6 or less and put it straight to the battlefield. He decides he wants to go ahead and be the big scary, so he finds Pathbreaker Ibex to the battlefield. Caden will then move to combat and swing his 3/3 Beastie at Sam, and upon connecting, Gnawbone will create him 3 treasure tokens. He'll then pass to Cameron, but on end step, Gandalf is flashed in, and then Cameron moves to his turn, where another Plains is played, and then he'll cast Elsewhere Flask. This will draw him 2 cards on ETB, and then the turn is passed to Ethan. And he'll start off by tapping for 3 and casting Tetzin, ETB trigger. It'll find him an Unstable Glyph Bridge to hand, and then Phyrexian Metamorph and a land will go to the graveyard. He'll then cast Mox Opal and Incubate, which is double-sided, so Tetzin trigger, and it's a whiff. And then he'll play an Inventor's Fair as land for turn, and pass the turn to Sam, who stays on end step to cast Decisive Denial. Vastra will fight Land of War Elves, and when it dies, he'll create a food and a clue. We'll then move to his turn, where he starts off with Urza Saga as land for turn. He'll then tap for 3 and cast Ginny Flint. After this, he'll move to combat, and he swings Madame Vastra at Caden. She must be blocked, and since she has Death Touch, Caden doesn't want to block with Gnawbone, so he'll put the Ibex in front of her. It and the Madam will trade, and she still sees it die, so he'll make another clue and another food. And unfortunately, Sam will also forget about his 3 lifelink. The turn is then passed to Caden, and he'll start off by tapping for 3 and then using 3 of his treasures to cast Bane of Progress. Cameron responds by flashing in Ichor Wellspring, and this will draw him 2 cards. Then when priority gets back around to Sam, he will Arcane Denial the Bane of Progress. Caden will then move to combat and swing Gnawbone over at Sam. Ethan decides giving the green deck 7 treasures though is not good, so he will Baby Rift Gnawbone back to Caden's hand. Post-combat, Caden will uptick Vivian to make another 3/3 with reach. Then he'll cast Eternal Witness and return Bane of Progress back to his hand. He'll also cast a Swiftfoot Boots and pass the turn to Cameron. Of course, the Flash deck will stay on end step, and Cameron will flash in Mycosynth Wellspring. Upon ETB, he gets to tutor 2 Plains to his hand, and then he'll move to his turn. Arcane Denial draws on upkeep, and he'll play a Plains, and then it's Gandalf, he'll pass the turn. So now on Ethan's turn, he'll start off with the Might Stone and the Weak Stone. We have an Incubate for 5 from the Seed Shark, and again, it's a double-sided artifact, so Tetzin trigger. The only artifact he hits here is Sculpting Steel, so that goes to his hand. Then the stones will resolve, and it is technically a double-faced card, so there's another Tetzin trigger, along with its ETB trigger. Tetzin will mill Seat of the Synod, Solemn Simulacrum, and Spectator Seating, and Ethan gets the land, and then he draws 2 off the stones. He'll then play Seat of the Synod, then cast Azorius Signet, which incubates him and gets him another Tetzin trigger. Inverted Iceberg and Lightning Greaves are among them, and he chooses to keep the Lightning Greaves. Then after this, he casts an Arcane Signet and do the same thing again. This time he mills Goblin Engineer, Sacred Foundry, and Rustvale Bridge, and he can take the bridge. And then he passes to Sam, who starts off by tapping for 3 and casting Tireless Provisioner. He'll then play a tap Stomping Ground as land for turn, landfall trigger, he chooses Treasure, and then he'll pass the turn to Caden, who starts off with a Wasteland as land for turn. Then he'll recast Old Gnawbone and attempt to equip her with the Swiftfoot Boots. There are no responses, so Caden will then move to combat and attack Cameron for 7 Commander in the air, and Cameron can't stop it. So Caden gets 7 treasures. Then post-combat, he'll downtick Vivian, then float 7 mana with those treasures, and use 6 of it to cast Bane of Progress again. The Vivian ability will trigger, and he's able to tutor for something mana value 5 or less. He decides to get something that's 1 though, an Allosaurus Shepherd, to ensure his stuff resolves from now on. Then in response to the Bane of Progress, Cameron floats 2 mana, and Sam will crack 2 Clue tokens, and unfortunately misses 2 Jenny Flint triggers. The Bane then happens, and it gets 20 counters on it. Cameron also gets 2 planes and 2 cards off of his Wellsprings being destroyed. But he will respond to his own Ichor Wellspring triggers by flashing in Mystic Forge to see what he's drawing before he does. And he decides he wants to keep both, so he just draws the 2. Caden will then pass, but of course Cameron is on end step to flash in a Felwar Stone, and then a Prophetic Prism. 2 draw triggers go on the stack, and he'll draw the first one, but thanks to Mystic Forge he's able to see what he's going to draw for the second one, and he doesn't like it, so he's going to activate the Mystic Forge to exile it. It's a plains and he'll lose 1 life, and then he resolves the second draw, and then moves to his turn. And on upkeep before his draw step, he'll look at the Arcane Signet on top of his library and exile it with Mystic Forge, and then move to his draw step. And if you're wondering why he didn't lose a life, it's because Inventor's Fair offset it. Anyways, Cameron moves to his first main and casts Soul Ring. He'll then cast and crack a Chromatic Star to float a white and draw 2 cards. Then with that floating white, he'll cast Skull Clamp, and equip it to Gandalf. And then pass the turn to Ethan, who will play a Mana Confluence as land for turn and immediately slam that Unstable Glyph Bridge. Of course Cameron has responses. He'll start off by flashing in Ashnod's Altar. He'll then sacrifice Gandalf to it to float 2 mana and draw 4 cards. Oh, that's it. So the Glyph Bridge resolves, and the only creatures that survive are Seed Shark, Jenny Flint, and Eternal Witness. And then the turn is passed to Sam. He'll start off with an Arcane Signet, then he'll cast Crime Novelist, and then pass the turn to Caden, who will immediately uptick Vivian to create another 3/3 Reacher. Then he'll tap for 7 and cast Nissa, Ascended Animist. He knows Cameron is becoming a problem, so he will downtick her to destroy his Skull Clamp, which is usually a combo piece of his. Then the turn is passed to Cameron, and he'll start off with a basic plains. He'll then tap for 4 and drop the One Ring. ETB trigger gives him pro everything. And then he'll just pass the turn, and discard Smothering Tithe on cleanup. And Ethan decides, hey, I want to slam this Scrap Mastery. So, yeah, Living Death for artifacts will happen. Before it resolves though, Cameron will activate One Ring to draw a card, and then float a white off his Felwar Stone. Then it resolves, and yeah, a lot of artifacts hit the field again, mostly on Ethan and Cameron's side. A lot of triggers will go on the stack when this resolves. But first, there's an As Enters trigger with Ethan's Phyrexian Metamorph, and he has it enter as Eternal Witness. Alright, let's start with these triggers from the bottom of the stack. Ethan places Eternal Witness on the bottom, targeting Urza, Lord Protector, which got milled earlier. Then Inverted Iceberg will go on top of it, Mightstone and Weakstone on top of that, drawing Ethan 2, and then Solemn Simulacrum on top of that, which will tutor him a basic to the battlefield tapped. On top of that, Sam's Crime Novelist will trigger, Caden doesn't have any triggers, and then Cameron has his 2 Wellsprings to draw him a card and tutor him a land to his hand, and then Elsewhere Flask also draws him a card, and that's at the very tippy top. Alright, now top down, that all resolves. Ethan now has mana to continue his turn, so he'll start off with Urza, Lord Protector. Then he'll cast Lightning Greaves for 1 mana, Shark trigger, and once those booties resolve, he'll equip them to Urza. After this, he'll cast Sculpting Steel for only 2 mana, and make another Solemn Simulacrum to get another basic to the battlefield tapped. Also another Incubate. Ethan will then say pass, but Sam stops him before phases change to use that red mana he has floating, and he'll flash in Mithril Coat and attach it to Jenny. And now let's move to Sam's turn, where he'll start off by recasting Madame Vastra. Then the turn is passed to Caden, and he says, man, I really need to start rebuilding this board. So he'll uptick Nissa to make a 7/7. Then he'll tap for 6 and cast Rishkar's Expertise to draw 7. And the free spell he gets off of it is Orin Frostfang. After this, he'll uptick Vivian again to make another 3/3 with Reach. And then thanks to Vivian, he's able to cast an Elvish Mystic off the top of his deck. Caden will then move to combat and swing his Beastie without Summoning Sickness and his Eternal Witness at Cameron, and Cameron just takes the 5. An Ornn Frostfang draws Caden 2. After this, Caden will play a Forest as land for turn and then cast an Emerald Medallion. Caden will then pass the turn. Cameron will stop on instep to sacrifice Inventor's Fair to find Cart Clan Ironworks. And then we'll move to his turn, where he'll, I guess, go for it, and he'll cast the KCI. And he'll start off by sacking Worn Power Stone. Then Mycosynth Wellspring, which gets him another Plains to hand. Then Elsewhere Flask, and then he'll play another Plains and recast Gandalf. Ichor Wellspring is the next thing thrown into the Ironworks, and he'll draw a card. Oh wait, no, 2. He'll then cast Foundry Inspector, then sacrifice Chromatic Star to draw 2. Then he'll cast Prize Statue, and immediately sacrifice it to get a total of 4 treasures off of it. Then he'll cast Mere Retriever, and immediately clamp it to draw 4 and return Prize Statue and Ichor Wellspring to his hand. He'll then recast and resack Prize Statue to get 4 more treasures. Then he'll cast Wizard's Rocket and sacrifice it for mana and 2 cards. He'll then cast Ichor Wellspring to draw 2, and then he'll cast Workshop Assistant. And we now have a loop. He will sacrifice the Assistant to return Mere Retriever and Wizard's Rockets to his hand. Wizard's Rockets is free, so he'll cast and sack it for 2 cards and 2 mana, and then he'll cast Mere Retriever and sack it for mana to return Workshop Assistant and Wizard's Rockets back to his hand, cast the Workshop and Wizard's Rockets, sacrifice them, loop, 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 infinite mana, draw as many cards as he needs. Oh, and that's a Walking Ballista, the exact thing that goes with infinite mana. So yeah, there's no responses at the table, which means Cameron pings all of his opponents to death, making him and Gandalf the winners. Congratulations. Alright everybody, welcome to the end of the video. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, be sure to let us know down in the comments below. And while you're down there, don't forget to check out all those links. Everybody got to do some pretty cool things in this game, and Cameron was able to storm off with artifacts in the end. Gandalf's one of his favorite decks, but he hasn't got to play it on the channel before, so I'm really happy he was able to win with it. But anyways, that's enough out of me everybody. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you all have a smooth day.